serving for 39 years and being inducted into the U.S. Veterans Hall of Fame. She's now the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southwest Texas, where she leads 15,000 girls and women in 21 county areas. Next, we have Colonel William Davis. He was the commandant of the New Orleans Military and Maritime Academy, and he also served as the Assistant Chief of Staff of the U.S. Marine Forces Reserve. Now serving as Executive Officer of the Young Marines, he's developing strategies to reduce drug use among American teens. And our final panelist today, Jane Hampton Cook, an award-winning author of 10 books, a national media commentator, columnist, and former White House communications staffer, and a presidential historian. Her passion is to inspire patriotism through her writings. So we welcome you all, and we're delighted to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Colonel, I want to go straight to you. As the head of the Young Marines, what are some of the most troubling problems you see afflicting young people today?
Yeah, it's interesting, the Young Marines being a selected organization, I see an interesting subset of the kids today. I would go back to when I was the commandant of the New Orleans Military Maritime Academy, and I dealt with youth all across the New Orleans metropolitan area and the challenges that they had. An education system that may not be always in their best interest in terms of challenging them and holding them accountable, but also, just the general issues for children that we see today. And a lot of that, manifests itself in the media, and it's not untrue. The challenges I see with the kids in the Young Marines, the kids I saw in New Orleans, social media, the distractions of that, all the things that come on with being almost on 24/7, trying to respond to things that are happening in a virtual environment, as opposed to the reality of what's in front of your face.
Colonel, you talk about the kind of general problems facing our youth. We're going to get right into the positive examples of perhaps what you've seen. But for parents of young kids, for example, where are we losing kids? Where have you seen examples of kids that had remarkable potential and then strayed off that path?
The off-ramps are many. What I usually saw, middle school seems to be the departure point. You have all this joy and happiness. Elementary school, middle school is where the challenges begin and the distractions begin. And I think the best thing, is that engagement, parental engagement, positive peer environments, and challenges, appropriate challenges. And one of the things I saw in the high school environment and still see today is this pressure that everyone should go to college, and that's not the case. Children have different instincts, different backgrounds, and one of the biggest things that I pushed for there at the Maritime Academy was that idea of going into the trades. I am happy to see that the trades are beginning to have a revival, if you would. More children are starting to explore that path, not just in the IT community, but also the rest of the traditional trades. That really is good. When you have a child mechanically inclined, don't try and force them into a box. Let them go be mechanically inclined. There's so many opportunities for them. They will appreciate it, enjoy it, and get a great education at the same time.
One of your focuses is drug use. How is this manifesting among young people today?
Oh, you can't overstate it. And General Salinas has the same thing going. Girl Scouts, we're all on mission for educating our youth better about the perils of illegal drugs in our country and the challenges that go with it. I mean, just in the 9 years I've been at Young Marines, you went from 4 pills to 7 pills having a lethal dose of fentanyl. And the kids aren't educated all the time about it. And the major media, especially in the marijuana area, leads them astray as to, the lethality or the consequences of that. It is not marijuana of the 60s and 70s. It's a lot more, the percentages are much higher today. And so this is this constant background that the children are exposed to. When I talk to young Marines, I know General Salinas has the same thing with Girl Scouts. When you talk to older young Marines, even in junior high, high school, they will all tell you about, just going to the bathroom. And now we have to have, vapor detectors and stuff in our bathrooms in high schools and middle schools for that. But what I will say, and both of our programs, and I know that Jane does the same thing, is, if you're educating the kids and you're also supporting these children, building the resiliency, not only do they have the education to say no, but they also have the morals, the ethics, and the personal resiliency to say no.
General Salinas, thank you, Colonel. General Salinas, can you weigh in on this? Can you give us maybe some examples of what you've seen around drug use?
Well, and again, that's kind of Bill's lane, but I will tell you when it's our lane with girls. So what we're seeing is that it's really occurring younger and younger, which is why a lot of our after-school programs, but specifically for a program like Girl Scouts, which has been around for over 100 years. But the idea is that you're trying to take children, but in our particular case, girls, where you're giving them confidence and courage and really building in them the self-esteem to be able to make good decisions. And that's really what we're trying to do is give them that confidence and in the choices that they're making. And that's really, as we go with Bill and young Marines, it's at some point giving them the confidence because there's just all these pressures. There's peer pressure, and we, of course, know ourselves as even adults. It's difficult because we're around our peers and, they want to drink and then they want to drive. And so what other choices are they making even at work? And there are ethical decisions that are being made. And even as we're vocal and the lack of civility among our peers when they're outspoken about decisions that they want to make when voting. And so we're all still succumbing. So imagine doing that when you're young. And so as we try to build this is helping them to be able to make these choices and then being a leader. And so part of that is instilling in them at a very young age. And with Girl Scouts, we try to do that in a safe place and doing that with all girls. And that's, again, part of this evolution because over time what we found is when girls start out, they look to the left and they look to the right, and they really believe that they have equal status with boys. But we're finding that around the second or the third grade, they're now noticing, whether it's because of society or ingrained with their families or just because their culture, they're no longer believing that they're going to be the leader. They're no longer having the confidence or like, hey, they want to be math, they want to be that astronaut, they want to fly planes, but then they're starting to realize, well, maybe they're not going to be the smartest one, they can't be the president, or somebody's making them believe they can't. And so they're starting to see around the third or the fourth grade not having the confidence or not believing that they're going to have the skill set, or they're not being led down the path that they can succeed, if that makes any sense. And so this is really why the power of role modeling, the power of having other adults in their lives, having the structure, the discipline of these organizations to help them make good decisions, if that makes sense, which leads down the lanes of having great books for them to read, why it's having organizations like Young Marines, other after-school programming, because this sets the stage for tomorrow's leaders and are needed.
And on that point, I want to jump, Colonel, you mentioned writing books, and one person we have on the panel here, Jane, maybe you can speak to this. What has inspired you, and what are some of the key issues that you try and address in your books when you're speaking to youth?
So last year in 2023, the U.S. Department of Education released a statistic that only 13% of 8th graders are proficient in American history. And that's a pretty startling number. And then when you look on, I write books about American history. And so I've written a novel and a literary nonfiction book for ages 12 and up about the American Revolution that you can use both in English class or in history class. And it's a way, sometimes we have to combine subjects, I think, academically to help build that proficiency back
2%.
up. And even looking on Amazon, there's a really popular category of books called Learning to Read, and they're numbered 1 to 4. But there were no books in this category about the flag. And so I took what I've learned about the flag from original sources, and I've made a whole series of books, numbered 1 to 4, about the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance and patriotic songs like America the Beautiful and My Country 'Tis of Thee, with the idea of presenting, these virtues of perseverance and truth and those things, those value systems that help children connect to their world and that are so very, a vital part of who we are as humans and Americans. Yes. In this case.
And Jane, we're going to come right back to traditional values and what you're covering in your books right now, though. for those at home. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, what are the forces looking to influence our youth? And how do we inspire these young people to maybe put down the phone and find a more fulfilling path? It's coming up.